Greetings! If you were to hop over to the Military Aviation History YouTube channel once you're done watching this video, you may notice that my counterpart over there has created a video talking about aircraft attacking tanks. If you are sent here from Military Aviation History after watching their video, well, greetings! Welcome to the ground pounder side of the house. And the purpose of this video is to basically talk about what it is that a tanker is going through when he's being attacked by aircraft. Because people tend not to think about that very much. Anyway, the first rule of thumb for the defending tanker is your job is a heck of a lot simpler than that of the attacking aircraft. You have one function only, and that is to survive. You want to get out of the interaction without any harm done to yourself and preferably not to your tank. This is a lot easier than the task provided to the pilot, who is actually trying to not only survive but also kill you. This also applies to air defense vehicles that may happen to be nearby at the front line, tactical air defense. So you're talking about, say, the German Mobilwagen, the American quad 50 cal half-track, the M16, or even more modern vehicles such as the VADs, the Gepard. Well, okay, that's gone out of service, and so is VADs. Whatever. Bottom line, tactical air defense, the operative word is defense. You are not trying to destroy the enemy aircraft. All you are trying to do is to ensure the survival of friendly assets such as me, the tanker. Now, this is something called virtual attrition. So what virtual attrition is basically you're causing the opposition to waste his resources. So he has used up his flight time, he's used up his fuel, he's used up his ordnance, and he's achieved nothing. So you have attrited him by, a sortie. So one up for you whilst you continue on your mission that has generally gone about without getting destroyed by the aircraft. At least that's the theory. I'll come back to that. Now, the best way, of course, to not get shot at is to not be seen in the first place. And the U.S. Army's tank manual of 1942 is extremely exhaustive on the concept of how not to be seen. Cue Monty Python references, but there you go. You go to it's filled with all sorts of helpful tricks, such as if you're going to cross a field, if you have a choice, cross a dark-coloured field, not a light-coloured field. If you feel like you're going to take a break, use the shade of a tree. Put your tank in the shade, not for your own personal comfort and keep the tank cool, but because if the tank's in the shadow, it's harder to see. And of course, because the sun will rotate, the shadow will move, you got to move your tank every now and then to make sure that you're still in relative concealment. It goes as far as to say, when you go into a tree line, try to snuff out the tank tracks that you've left behind, that an aircraft could go, I wonder if there are any tanks in those trees. Now, unfortunately, once it goes beyond those sorts of helpful hints, the tank manual of 1942 is actually very silent. So you got to look for more modern literature to get an idea as to what else you can do. So let's say FM 1715 of the mid-1990s. Again, it's been superseded, but the idea is valid. So the first thing you want to do when you discover that there is an aircraft flying around your vicinity is, well, not be seen again. The best way of doing this, assuming there is no cover or concealment nearby, is to stop moving, because a moving item attracts the eye. And why make things easier for the pilot? Remember, the pilot's got a couple of other things on his mind. He's not just looking out the window looking at you. He also would like to try to avoid crashing into things, and is preferably also trying to avoid getting shot down. So don't make it easy. Don't leave any dust plumes up where he can say, hey, look, there's a tank, that sort of thing. However, let us assume that this has failed to work, and the next thing you realize is that the aircraft is indeed turning to line up on you. You start taking slightly more active defenses, like dispersing or moving. So the manual states, for example, that you should try moving at a 45-degree angle, obliquely, to the aircraft. And what this is going to do is a couple of things. You're going to try to generate a miss by, firstly, you are going to move left to right or right to left from the pilot's perspective. So he's got to aim off and apply the correct lead for the ordnance that he's using. The second thing you have is you've got the change of distance as well, because you're moving towards the aircraft obliquely. So that's another complication to the solution that the pilot is trying to come up with. The other thing you can do is shoot back. And again, this is why you got machine guns on top of the tank, especially in World War II. Those kind of awkward looking machine guns that you wonder how you're supposed to shoot them at infantry. They were designed for anti-aircraft work. And this has a couple of effects. Firstly, it makes you feel a whole heck of a lot better, because you're shooting at the guy who's trying to kill you. And it also makes the person you're shooting at feel a whole heck of a lot worse. And if you think about this rationally, the guy in the tank has a very significant advantage here. Because, well, he's in the tank. If he gets hit by the airplane's 20mm cannon, or if he gets hit by a near miss fragmentation by a bomb or something, it's not the end of the world. If the aircraft is hit by even something as small as a 7.62 round, there is a very good chance of something bad happening. And, well, the pilot's not going to be happy about this. Now, the manual is also very specific that you're not actually trying to hit the aircraft. It specifically says, do not try to track the aircraft. What you're doing is setting up what it calls a wall of steel through which the aircraft has to fly. And he can see the tracer. You can't see the steel, but he can certainly see the tracer coming up. And the whole platoon is aiming at this fictional point in the sky. So there's a fair bit of tracer coming at him that is very much fixed in his mind. Because the other problem is, well, let's say the aircraft actually does connect with your tank, and your tank gets knocked out. Probably not destroyed, but you're knocked out. The chances are you will survive this interaction, and then you simply get out. And you drop the 6 feet to the ground, and then you walk back and get another tank. If the aircraft is hit by the caliber 50 round, let's say, that you're shooting at him, the pilot is now going through a significant emotional event, because he is now thinking very hard about the pending Earth-air interface and its nearly infinite coefficient of friction that he is about to demonstrate in a very violent physics lesson. He would like to avoid this as much as possible. So the theory is, with all this tracer coming at him, he is going to get distracted and maybe even abort in the interests of his own survival. Now, with more modern vehicles, you got more than just a caliber 50 to throw up at them. If you're shooting at an aircraft, like a helicopter, for example, well, within a couple of kilometers, you can fire a saber round at it. Chopper probably won't react well. There's more modern munitions like the impact round, which is a proximity fused round. If you're in a Soviet tank, that anti-tank missile that is fired from the gun tube, well, that's pretty useful against helicopters at several kilometers away. And by the way, the anti-tank missile fired by the Soviet tanks is faster than your typical helicopter-launched missile. So unless it's fire forget, that chopper pilot's going to be in for an interesting experience. Anyway, the aircraft, let's say, goes home and you have theoretically survived. That is not the end of the story, because the next problem is that you've had a psychological effect. Now, this isn't simply a matter of, oh my god, I'm being shot at by an aircraft. It's a scary side effect, because frankly, you don't think about that when you're getting shot at. You just go right into your training. Instead, it is more of a complication of the issue, because air is one of the 7 forms of contact. Go look them up. They include direct fire, indirect fire, artillery, air, EW, NBC, chemical, or visual obscuration, or obstacle, if I didn't say obstacle twice. And this is basically a level of complexity that you have to add to your process. So the way you can think about this is that a very basic trained unit like conscripts, they are usually capable of responding well to a single form of contact. Like direct fire, they shot at us, we deploy, we shoot back, we conduct our actions. Your typical well-trained unit will react well enough to 2 forms of contact at once. We are getting shot at and we are getting hit by artillery. They can handle it. A well-trained unit, like very well-trained, can handle 3 forms of contact at once. We are getting shot at, we're getting hit by artillery, whilst we deal with this minefield. Very few units can handle 4 forms of contact at the same time. So by adding aircraft into the mix, to whatever else is out there, well, that's one more thing he's got to worry about. And if you think about this, let's say you were reacting to the air attack by doing that, driving obliquely at high speed. Okay, you're making life a lot harder for the aircraft that's attacking you. But what is the enemy anti-tank gunner doing as he's looking through the sight of this vehicle that is charging at high speed in a reasonably straight line? He's probably going, ooh, nice target. So even though the aircraft hasn't necessarily killed you, if he has made life a lot easier for somebody else to kill you, has he done the same job? Arguably, yes, he has. So there you go, things to think about when you are on the ground on the receiving end of aircraft. So as I say, hop over to the Military Aviation History YouTube channel and see what he's got to say on the matter. I'll see you then.